Welcome to Can, the marketing podcast. I'm Ben from Human Digital, the B2B marketing agency.
And I'm Steph from Q Marketing, making brands shine since ages ago.
This week, we're unpacking why customer experience is not just a nice to have, but the delivery of brand promise, and why the best brands shine when things go wrong.
So get out those customer journeys. We're going to follow the customer all the way through, including the part where things go sideways.
Remember, we release an episode every week, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Happy Wednesday, Steph. I'm looking out the window and it is absolutely miserable here in Auckland. But yeah, that's a Kiwi summer, and I think it's the same across Australia as well. But how's your week? How's your week going?
Well, I think the weather's really topical. I've arrived in the recording studio in an absolute bedraggled mess. I've had to re-wash, brush all my hair because I've literally just stepped off the ferry from Waiheke. I can tell you, and not a great day to be on Waiheke and catching a ferry across. Nice to be inside. Yeah, it
is. And what have you been up to on Waiheke?
Okay, so I've had 2 trips to Waiheke, believe it or not. So it's been a great week. I went to a wedding on Waiheke for some friends on Saturday, which was amazing at Batch Winery, and I'd never been there before, and everyone was telling me how beautiful it was, and gorgeous spot. Had an amazing time at the wedding. Came back to Auckland, did an extreme amount of packing because I'm about to go on a camping holiday on Friday, and then went back to Waiheke for a 3-day strategy workshop for a new client, which was amazing. We've got an international team, so we had people from Texas and from California in the team, and but unfortunately we were beachfront, but it's been raining the entire time. So we've basically just been sitting inside, doing a whole bunch of strategic work. So not a bad week. Would have been amazing had we been sitting outside working on our tans, but that's not quite how it worked out. And as a result of all this rain, my camping trip up to the Bay of Islands has now been moved to Rotorua.
Oh, wow. Okay. So no more, you are still camping, but in Rotorua?
Yeah. So we're camping with power, slightly different activities, no fishing, more like mountain biking. But it's a lot of pivoting going on this week.
Love a pivot. I've also been getting stuck into 2026, preparing the calendar for the year ahead. We've got the B2B marketing conference that's coming up. I think early bird tickets are still available.
Yes.
Also heading away for the long weekend coming up. We will be in Waihi. That has been washed out in the past in the campground. I will luckily not be in a tent.
Stop it.
It should be a fun weekend. We like playing board games and cards, so there'll be no end of entertainment whether it's sunny or not.
What's your favorite board game?
So I'm a big fan. It's not technically a board game, but it's catchphrase. So this is where you have it's essentially a little device that tells you, the name of the movie or an object or something like that, and you have to describe it without saying the words. And it's hilarious. It's so much fun.
So you've just reminded me. So we got back, we were all staying in a house together. Bearing in mind I hadn't met all these people before, right, for this new client. There's 8 of us in a room, and we got back last night and we broke out Cards of Humanity.
Oh, I love that game. That's so good.
Can I just remind you, we had 2 Americans in the group, and it was real cultural baptisms by fire. It was fantastic. Great way to get to know your colleagues very fast.
That's good. And you've got some news to report on this week, Steph.
Yes, well, I'd like to report this week that I am in fact in the news. I'm quoted in the news. So this is great. It's a really nice tie into our episode today, which is about customer experience. And I was contacted by a reporter last week to give some feedback on the Mecca Beauty Loop program. Now, are you, Ben, you shop at Mecca?
I think I might. I have shopped at Mecca. I think I got pulled into this loop, but tell us about the loop. I'm not familiar with it, but I think I signed up.
So it's a loyalty program, and it works really well because we've got strong competition for cosmetics and makeup in New Zealand. And Beauty Loop, it's very classic. You spend an X amount and you get level 1, level 2, level 3. And at each level you get a little box of gifts, and it's sample product. And so it has created intense loyalty. My 14-year-old daughter knows the level that everyone is at in her friend group. So it all is working really well, but they did something at Christmas time where instead of giving, well, two things happened. Mecca gave away gifts that were expired, so expired samples. Secondly, they gave everyone a tote bag instead of a gift, and that didn't go. Apparently, the dye was coming off on people's clothes, and they're like, well, "What's up with this tote bag? This is not cosmetics." So, huge pushback, and I've been quoted in the media to give my opinion about that. So feel free to look that up on Newsroom.
Brilliant. And hopefully Mecca can sort this out and improve this customer experience kerfuffle.
Exactly. Now, Ben, give us the news. What are the headlines this week from your side, please?
Well, I've got one headline. Ads are coming to AI. We knew this was going to happen. It looks like it's happening this year. So ChatGPT has already announced their advertising principles. So they haven't said exactly how it's going to work, but they're saying that ads will appear alongside results. So this is similar to the Google experience.
We don't want this, do we? We don't want this.
It's bound to happen. I mean,
I'm already paying.
They need to finance this somehow. And so this will be for their free tiers. So this will kind of be their freemium model. Google is also offering ads in their Gemini experience in 2026. Not much information shared with advertisers yet, but it sounds like that is coming quickly.
I mean, it's just like Spotify, right? Same thing. You
It's
don't pay
freemium.
for Spotify. Exactly. Okay. Thank you.
But this week we have Sarah. So Sarah is going to be joining the pod, and we're really lucky to have Sarah. So Sarah Clearwater is a customer experience specialist. So let's welcome Sarah to the pod.
Welcome.
Well, welcome to the pod, Sarah. Welcome. So Sarah, do you want to give a quick intro to our audience?
Oh, thanks, Ben and Steph. Lovely to meet you both here online and I guess share a bit more about the things I'm really passionate about. So as I mentioned, my name is Sarah Clearwater. I am the CEO and founder of Reframer, and we partner with organizations who want us to grow sustainably by putting customers, communities, or citizens at the heart of their business.
And so that makes you, I guess, the reason that we're chatting today is because you're an expert in customer experience. What have you always done that, Sarah? Like, how did you get into it in the first place?
I think it's such a good question because there isn't actually a linear pathway into customer experience, at least not here in New Zealand. I actually started out as a social scientist working for public sector over in Europe. And I was doing quite a lot of work in, I guess, better understanding how we can create policy for lots of different cultures and lots of different people into, a single thing that might make a difference to people's lives. And then Medicare, we moved to New Zealand, and of course the context is quite different here. So yeah, it was a bit of a reinvention journey, but I think the thing that really struck me when I learned about design thinking or human-centered design was the possibility of imagining a different future for organizations where we can actually anchor into the needs and preferences of the people who we serve and who buy from us.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I really want to unpack is, like, Ben and I talk a lot about marketing in general, but part of me wonders, I guess, if people really understand the definition of what customer experience is. And it's really been pulled apart as its own discipline. I think that's what I've seen in the last few years. What's your take on that in terms of, is it becoming, are companies becoming more cognizant of what customer experiences, like in terms of a function, actually are? Do you want to just maybe share with us kind of what you're seeing?
Yeah, totally. So from my view, and of course that's biased, but my view is that at its simplest form, customer experience is a practice of making visible and tangible how a customer is experiencing your organization.
And through that lens, exactly, it touches everything, all the way from when a customer learns about the brand, all the way through to as they experience it. And I think customer experience does touch marketing. And I know customer experience is very close friends with the marketing team often. But customer experience is across the whole experience that a customer has with an organization. And actually, Sarah and I worked together for a little bit at IAG, probably about 5 or 6 years ago now. And Yeah, we collaborated a lot during that time.
No, so there was a great time, and I think it was a time where we were still figuring out really what was happening in New Zealand. Right, you've got all these terms. You've got customer experience, human-centered design, service design. Like, what does all of that mean? And they're similar words for things that are happening in different contexts, right? But then we were really trying to figure out, how do we help IAG understand their customers better?
And do you think that in a lot of organizations that you work with, do you think it's because I don't know that a lot of organizations necessarily have their own customer experience department or team. So if that is the case, what else, like where else would it sit in the business?
So the large corporates in New Zealand, like financial services, as a prime example, have quite significant customer experience teams, but where they sit is a tricky question. So they often sit in or amongst marketing, sometimes technology, sometimes product, depending on what sort of organization it really is. But I think to your earlier question, Steph, like, what's the actual difference, right? Marketing is its own business function. Customer experience is the glue that keeps different business functions working together cohesively for the customer.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, it's often said that marketing is owned, like the role of marketing is to bring the voice of the customer into the room. But I think having a discipline that really can understand, and I think I really liked what you said earlier, which was about making it tangible, how a customer is experiencing a brand or a product. So, and I think one of the ways that we can do that is journey mapping. How would you describe what customer journey mapping is for somebody who might never have heard of that?
Yeah, totally. So the name somewhat gives it away, but a customer journey map is a map, right? But it allows us to see how a customer is moving through different parts of our organization. And again, it just makes it visible and it makes it relatable. So what we're often observing is that, because we live in our org chart, right? So marketing lives in marketing, sales lives in sales, and marketing attracts a customer, they move into the CRM, sales picks them up, tries to convert them, throws them over to product shoves stuff down their throat, service fixes stuff when things go wrong or when they want to cancel, and that's just on repeat.
Yes.
But how...
Yeah. I'm in my head, Sarah, I'm a bit like, because this is exactly how I've experienced it. Like, it's like, no, sales, no, it's product.
And I think customer experience is so key to brand. And I think from a marketing perspective, a lot of what we do as marketers is make promises. So we run a campaign saying, buy our product, you get this, buy our service, you get this. But it's that experience that is delivered by the brand that either keeps that promise or oftentimes, sadly, it breaks it. And I think customers remember the break more than the message. And I think, Sarah, a lot of the work that you've been doing is all about delivering on that promise, or potentially looking at the customer experience and looking for either opportunities to differentiate or, how do we fix it? But what is your focus when you go into a brand, and how do you assess their customer experience?
Big questions. I think, so when I look back into some of the key areas of focus that we get pulled into is often when, for example, organizations go, we've got a ton of data, but we've got no information. How do we make decisions, right? If you are there as a marketer to deliver it or to create a brand promise, what are you basing that promise on? On the preferences of your CEO? On, best practice that's currently in the market in your industry? Or do you actually look to your customers and go, what promises do they want me to make and keep? That's some of the shifts specific to brand that I see where customer experience and marketing works together really well.
Differentiation is sometimes a real advantage for a brand. So if we think about the commoditized services, insurance, telcos, and a lot of what they will differentiate in is that interaction with the customer. And I think that's potentially why you see insurance companies and banks really investing maybe more heavily in customer experience than potentially some other companies. But do you see a trend where service-based companies or more commodity companies invest in experience, or are you seeing brands and companies invest holistically in customer experience?
I think we're seeing companies invest in customer experience once they've figured out that business as usual is no longer getting them ahead. When they're trying to attract the next generation or the next type of customer, that might not be generational, that might be a different segment or a different culture altogether. And the thing is that we've done business the same way for several decades now, right? Pretty much since like the Cold War, business is done the same way. And you go, people change, products change, technology changes, legislation changes. There is no one person in the business who knows what the right thing to do is tomorrow. But if we know the people who we are serving well, we can make much more informed decisions around what we believe is right for them tomorrow. And so we create not just a level of foresight, but we're also creating a level of resilience into the business. And that's really important, right? If we're thinking about a world that's always changing, we can't just keep up. We have to be able to think ahead, and not just tomorrow, not just next quarter, but the next 3 to 5 years. And we do that through relationships.
And so what I think you're saying there is that so you've got access to data, you're analyzing it, and you're actually going, how does this relate? And what is this telling us about how our customers are using the product or working their way through the system, etc. And then I guess what you're saying is you're drawing some interpretations to go, here are the pain points and here's how we can solve for them and develop trends and insights, I suppose is what you're saying there.
Part of it. So sometimes it drives into how might we reinterpret the brand DNA? Like, do we need to start making changes around the composition of the promise? Sometimes sometimes that leads straight to, so if I think about what are the most common problems people come to us for when they've tried everything and nothing is working, it's metrics around acquisition, retention, conversion, churn, or cost to serve. Why isn't this working? It's because the promise and the delivery is misaligned. We need to see where that is happening so that we can make decisions around where we focus our efforts to realign and or evolve and improve.
And I mean, there's probably quite a few places in businesses where there are those blind spots, right? So, and what I see in a large corporate is, again, I joked about the handover between, sales and product and all the rest of it. But that sometimes we do operate in large businesses in silos and customer service might have their own view of it. Marketing go, I've done my job. Sales go, I've done my job, and no one's following the whole thing through. And it can be a little bit hands off. Would you say that you've seen a bit of that happening?
10 out of 10. I think about a recent example. So we've been working with a global leader in sort of health and fitness for the last 18 months, 2 years. And we've recently been looking into their acquisition journey, specifically in the B2B space. So they're great in B2C. We love them. Beautiful brand, beautiful execution. But the B2B space is, I guess, less explored. And to be fair, B2B CX is almost absent of best practice. It's such a different business model, right?
Yeah.
And so what was really important to see for these guys is that everybody's trying to do their best work. Marketing is trying to drive tons of leads. Sales is trying to convert them. Onboarding or customer success is trying to get the customer to value, as soon as possible. But because each department has their own KPIs, their own ways of measuring success, and it's not aligned. There isn't a way to see that marketing is driving for lead volume, sales is driving for readiness to buy, driving for speed to value. The journey is the only way and the only place I've seen that show up.
Yeah. And talk me, and can you sort of give an example of how you've solved for that? So if we take that specific example, I don't know how far through the process you have gotten on that particular project, but have you solved it? And what were the things that maybe were an unlock for that business potentially?
Yeah. So I think the first thing was to actually have everybody in the same room. I think surprisingly, that's still a huge change to business as usual. Yeah. And that's not unique to this business, right? But bringing cross-functional teams into the same room, to the same conversation, onto the same mirror board or the same whiteboard, and actually help each other understand what they're optimizing for, is to see that although volume, like the common thing between sales and marketing is they're not enough leads or the lead quality is poor. That's what we hear all the time.
I've heard it many times. Have you heard that, Ben?
All the time.
Yeah. And go, are they? And it's not to say that sales or marketing is wrong, But this is to say, what does good look like?
Yeah.
Where does the value sit? Yeah.
And I, to be fair, I don't think the problems with B2B are any different to B2C. I think typically there's more investment in B2C businesses to get at least the business processes much more lined up, because the volume is so high in B2C. You cannot have a process that is fragmented. But if in B2B, because potentially the volume is a little lower, the customer experience is a bit more bespoke and the handoffs are pretty manual. And I think where most B2B customer experience programs fail is they fail in the handoffs or the handovers. So this is where, marketing gives a lead to sales, and then sales gives that sold contract into operations to deliver. And I think that it's that handoff or handover that break the promise in B2B. So bringing everyone into the room, that, like you were saying, Sarah, is definitely where it needs to happen. But once they're in the room, how do you get people to improve that handover process with the client?
So sometimes it can be that the issue is operational, as in handover. But I also think that we're not accounting for invisible parts of the journey, and there are lots of them in B2B. So for example, we know that in B2B, it takes between 7 to 10 people to make a decision, right? At least if you're working with corporate. So you have a committee of decision makers. Your customer journey is not showing, unless you're intentionally mapped for that, the 7 other stakeholders that are involved.
Yeah, right.
In B2B,
Yeah.
And so it's the CFO, the CEO, or whoever. And then that happens again during onboarding. As a CEO, I'm making a decision, but it's actually my facility lead or my, store lead or whoever who is then needing to work with the product, who hasn't been involved at all.
And the decision making, and may possibly have been given the job of manage and rolling something out. If I can think of some examples where that's happened.
And I think this is where CRMs really come into their own. I mean, CRMs have been around for so long, and they're really important in the B2B space, with concepts like account-based marketing becoming more popular. Marketers are definitely seeing the full, or at least a fuller view of who the buyer is and the decision makers in that buying process. But I think what you're saying, Sarah, is that that's only the first step, and the people that are buying the product may not be the users of the product, and getting that to be smoother is not easy, because that individual may not even be known to the B2B brand at the time of purchase.
Yes. And also sales cycles in B2B, as you'd know, Ben, are significantly longer, right? If you think about B2C, it's transactional, it's repeatable, it's scalable. That's what we're optimizing for. In B2B, we often optimize for relationship, for utility, for lifetime value.
And what I'm imagining then happens is that you don't realize that you've got a problem until quite far down the line too. That's the other thing, because it can take a while for those problems to surface. If your lead time, from initial contact through to closing a deal is, 9 to 10 months, and there's something broken in that process, it can take you a while to uncover that. And in the meantime, so I'm sure this is what you see probably.
So customer experience is not just customer journeys. I think a lot of people think customer experience, customer journey, and there's also other artifacts. So if you were advising, especially a marketing team, what are some of the either artifacts or some of the tools that marketers can use to put best practice customer experience into their work, and how do they improve what they do and the customer experience from a marketing perspective?
I think it's a really great question. In my view, I'm thinking, what is the thing that will help you be a better marketer than try and do all the customer experience things? And something like personas is actually a really straightforward tool that is different to segments in a few ways. So as far as I'm aware, and you're the marketing expert, so you tell me, but as far as I'm aware, segments are often based on demographics and on
they used to
behavior.
be.
But the segment or generational, the under 25s, over 50-year-olds, they do this. Yeah. And when we're talking about personas or about customer archetypes, what we're talking about is psychographic or behavioral profiles that cut across your segments, because it's often in that sort of vertical that you actually understand commonalities or patterns. What we're looking for is patterns of behavior, of preference, and of decision making that help you target those people. So it shouldn't matter if your customer technically is 25 and 55, single or in a relationship. If that doesn't affect their decision making around your particular product, why do you need to know? So I think considering how you could enhance your segmentation to be really deliberate around decision making parameters and patterns would be a major enhancement.
Yeah, I think that's really valid, and I've seen more and more segmentation by psychographics and interest groups and things like that. For example, I've been working in the QSR space. Your age doesn't necessarily determine what kind of takeaways you want. Like, it's potentially a little bit more. It's much deeper than that. It's, what resonates with you, how much money you've got to spend, etc. Yeah, for sure. I think that's a really great start. And I think what other advice would you give, I guess, to smaller companies, right? So less complicated. Let's say you're working in a relatively small team. Maybe you're the only marketer, but you want to kind of really understand that customer experience. What other advice would you give, or what's easy to do quickly?
Yeah. So a few things are coming up for me here. One thing is to go, from my view, the interesting thing about customer experience for marketers is understanding how they can leverage the practice to drive the outcomes that they're seeking. How can customer experience be a lever to drive, brand integrity, operational integrity, delivery in line with that promise? And so if I go, what can smaller marketers do if they're on their own? My assumption is that the biggest challenge is to help people understand what was promised and then deliver to that and not muck it up.
Yeah. And sometimes and we talk about this a little bit on the show too, quite often, is sometimes it's just actually speaking to your customers as a starting point.
Yeah, a lot of the time it is, right? A lot of them is talking to them around a specific issue. So rather than going on to talk to 10 customers about how was your experience with us, it's lovely, but it's not going to give you any actionable insight. But if you know, for example, that you have an acquisition or a churn problem, or that conversion of part of your website isn't following through if you're B2C, or where in the process are things stuck, and that's where you talk to customers, right? Not just the ones that are happy, but the ones who may have recently cancelled. In fact, that's a gold mine. Can you build the courage to talk to 3 people who've recently cancelled and ask them about their experience? You'll learn more out of that than any textbook.
So I see a lot of brands and companies say that they're customer centric. I mean, I see it in copy all the time. We put the customer first, we're focused on the customer experience. But when it comes to the reality, their organizational design really rewards internal efficiency. So what are some of the signs that a company's actually serious about customer service? And what's the signal that it's basically just lip service? Do you have any tell signs?
So for me, customer maturity, which relates to your ability to understand your customer deeply, is connected to your ability to make decisions based on that. So your business casing, your executive decision making, your 5-year strategy, is it informed by customer insight, or is it informed by assumption and perception? The latter
sometimes people will say it's a customer insight, but it's not an insight. It is a perception or an opinion. And I think, sometimes it can be really hard to challenge that. Potentially if you're new to a business, for example, or something is presented as a customer insight, and then it can be quite difficult to, then you've got to go down a sort of a pathway to unravel that a little bit when it turns out to not be true.
Yeah.
So marketers are really being challenged at the moment as well to prove the ROI of everything, and whether that's a campaign or an activity. So if we're talking about customer experience, what is the ROI on investing in customer experience that you see?
Ben, the CFO, asking the question.
Putting my CFO hat on.
Yeah, love it. It's a beautiful hat. So that's at its crux. That is the thing that every customer experience team in New Zealand is struggling with, right? Because what's the ROI of glue work? You're building a house, If you haven't put nails in them, it'll become apparent only when there is a storm. Up until then, the house will stand out. So there is something to be said around not everything that is valuable can be measured.
Yeah.
At the same time, I will say that the greatest success that we've had with CX initiatives relates to our ability to connect to hard business metrics: acquisition, retention, churn, cost to serve, version. Right, they're the 5. And the trick, no matter if you're a team of 1 or a team of 20, is to understand what you intend to change through introducing a customer experience lens or program, if that's NPS or if that's Qualtrics, and we're just one side of the customer field. But you don't need, a 6-figure program to understand what's not working.
The other thing that's really important to call out here is, and you've touched on it a little bit, being prepared to act on the insights. Your customers might be churning and they might take the advice to, speak to those customers who have recently churned. Then it's actually nobody likes to be told that their baby is ugly. It's really important to listen to the feedback and action it. And that's true of any kind of market research or insight. And so, I think particularly in your role, I suppose, Sarah, coming into a business and being the person on the outside that's potentially driving these insights, I'm imagining that you would want to work with a client that is prepared to take on board that feedback, because there would be times where that could be quite challenging.
I think we've been really lucky in that we've been working with organizations who have created a mandate before they've brought us in, or we've been able to help create a mandate. So I often talk about go with the flow to create one runway to fly. Yeah. And so what I mean by that is when you're in an organization, and especially if you spend some time in there, you see all the possibilities. Yeah. If you're the CMO or if you're like a senior marketer and you've been around the block and you go, we could do all these things. If only my CFO would give me money, Ben. Yeah. If only, the product team would drive this feature, if only. But the reality is that the organization is not ready for that view because you are possibly the only one who sees that. What is the organization ready for? Give you an example. So we were working with a public sector organization a couple of years ago, and they had a sole CX lead, and that phenomenal human has been working their butts off for years to help the organization understand customer.
Yeah.
And the unlock was that the organization had to go through a digital replatforming because their technology was end of life.
Okay.
And she's been asking for resource forever. The moment the organization spent that money on the replatforming, she was like going to the delivery lead, like figuring out who was getting this contract. And she's used that as leverage to introduce the organization to journey mapping.
Because now it's more easily traceable, right? They've got the technology to be able to do it.
But it's also because if they're introducing a new CRM system as part of their suite, and the CRM system is just replicating status quo, they're replicating and possibly scaling the issues that they're already experiencing. So their core thing was consistently inconsistent experiences. If you're augmenting that with technology, you're having more consistently inconsistent experiences, and that's going to cost you. Right?
This isn't working. Why? I can't figure it out. We've got this new technology. Why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so suddenly the organization was like, wow, we can use journey mapping to actually focus, de-scope, and target technology investment. That's saving money, number one. Yeah. Then we've gone, not only are we building the map and enabling technology to work better for us, we're now going to socialize the finding across the rest of the organization. What you then have is people in all parts of the country going, oh, now I know why they're investing money in a CRM system, not my salary. Yeah, because
I mean, some people might still want the salary.
Yeah. But so then you go, and then you know what we should do is actually introduce a feedback survey, like a regular feedback mechanism, so we can start addressing some of the issues that you all have seen are occurring. So we're not just creating a project, we're creating runway for buy-in and change over time. And I think that's, again, where CX and marketing work together so beautifully. Yeah. It's a partnership for longevity and change in organizations.
Well, I mean, I think it's very brilliantly put, Sarah.
So I like giving real world examples. And I think what are, Steph and Sarah, a couple of your favorite brand experience moments that you've had, maybe over last year, and why. I'll give you my example. So unfortunately, I had my phone grabbed from me when I was in Rio, so it was taken right out of my hand, and it was not the greatest experience, but I had a really good experience with ASB. So ASB, with their travel card, they have insurance, which was a lifesaver. So I was insured for my trip, but they also had this 24/7 support line. And I was trying to get my shit together at really early hours of the morning in New Zealand, and this line was one of the lines that was open to me, and I was able to have a chat with them and talk to them about my experience, and they commiserated with me and gave me some advice. So that experience for me, that banking experience, was really positive. It was positive because they acknowledged the situation that I was in, they gave me practical advice, and they gave me reassurance about, they didn't guarantee that I was going to be covered, but they were giving me solutions. So that's my example of a great customer experience, available, reassuring, and really delivering on that trust that I put into the bank. But Steph and Sarah, have you had any? Yeah. Have you had any amazing experiences that you can share?
I've got one, but so funnily enough, I've talked about this on the podcast before, but it's an experience that reoccurred. So I bought some shoes from Catherine Wilson on sale. I think it was pre-Christmas, and the minute I put them on and wore them, I literally put them on in the bedroom, wore them into the kitchen, and it was the sling back and the elastic broke. And so I then ended up outside Catherine Wilson's actual office, and walked into her, her office, and took my shoes out and said, look, I bought these online, they're on sale. And she went out and she personally greeted me and went and got me a replacement pair of shoes. And it was amazing. Like, that was, you can't get a better brand experience from the person whose name is on the brand. And so I went away and I was a very happy customer, and I was so happy I talked about it then. And then the bloody shoe broke again. And this time I went up to her store just up the road from my house, and I had a lovely sales assistant, and it was very manual. She took me, a square piece of paper and said, look, write your name down and we'll see what we can do. And within 24 hours had a response, and they've got another pair of shoes ready for me to go. Now, technically, there's probably a technical fault in the shoe, let's be honest. Consistently executed service, and really, and I sort of handed that piece of paper over, and I was like, oh, I'll probably have to follow that up. So that was my brand experience.
Amazing.
Yeah. How about you, Sarah?
Despite my best efforts, I've been to Mitre 10 like a few times over the break, and favorite Kiwi brand. So in case you couldn't tell, I'm not a DIY by nature, and so it is a bit of a learning curve involved. The thing that I love about the way that Mitre 10 delivers the brand promise is that everybody in there is extremely knowledgeable, and that they're putting people into the different sections, like depending on interest or experience. I walked to the gardening centre. I had this lovely lady. I mean, I don't know if she's still of legal employment age or if she's superseded that ceiling. But yeah,
you can work until you die, Sarah. That's possible.
Okay. Hurrah. But she's like, so I've got, I showed her the pots that I wanted and the flowers that I wanted. She's like, well, you want to do this and this and use this soil, but not the soil. And then she basically proceeded to provide me with a plan for the weekend so that I could plant the right flowers at the right time to the right pots to achieve the desired outcome. Like, it was methodical, sharp. She was like, don't use that soil, love, don't do that.
I'm surprised she didn't offer to come to your house and help plant them. That might have been
I think we were close. I did step away. But I think, so what's great here about the promise and the delivery is the simplicity, it's the honesty. Like, it's very simple. There's no fluff, right? It's really useful, and then empowers me to make changes to my home that allow me to, that makes me happy about it at the end. So that was really good.
Oh, so I think the common theme here is, it's easy for brands to deliver their promise when everything's going right, when the experience is cookie cutter. But the best brands really shine through when things don't go to plan, when the shoe breaks, when the phone gets stolen, when the wrong soil gets chosen. It's brands that know how to deliver a great experience when things go wrong, I think that's where great brands are formed. And that seems to be the theme, at least in our 3 examples. And that's hard to do. It's hard to do unless you're truly customer centric.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And to your point, that is where you've built resilience into the business, right? Because you have stress tested your systems and processes, you've checked it against real life experiences, and then you have made the decision to operationalize resilience. And I think that's where we see a real difference.
That's brilliant, Sarah. And it sounds like you've got something coming up with a webinar that you're doing.
Yes. So I'm really excited about helping more marketers get started with customer journey mapping. And so we're running next Thursday, we're running a 30-minute webinar on how to optimize pipelines using customer journey mapping. It's a free webinar. If you find me on LinkedIn and just DM me pipeline, I'll send you through the link to register. I think it's going to be a really fun conversation, and there'll be a little goodie during the webinar as well if you come in person.
Brilliant. We will put the link in the show notes.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for coming and being first guest of 2026. Thank you, Sarah. And we will put all of these notes for our listeners in the show notes.
Thanks
you
so much, team. Great to see you.
Can the Marketing Podcast is brought to you by Q Marketing and Human Digital. Our editor is Bruna Barbosa. New episodes drop weekly, so tell your friends and colleagues.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you follow and subscribe to Canned wherever you listen. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and if you want the full visual experience, check us out on YouTube.
See you next week.